Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be doing a quick comparison with the new Acura NSX, and we're comparing it against a Ferrari 458 because I feel like the 458 is really the most iconic and kind of like the mainstay in this segment. And so yes, we're doing a comparison with all these cars, and yes, there's a bunch of other cars in the background because we're at Chandler's place. So we've got Chandler's C8, and then we've got his Tesla and his Raptor on top of that, and then we have Jaden Anderson's GTR and then his Aventador as well. So like lots of craziness happening. Link to Jaden's channel in the description below, and then also link to Chandler's channel as well. But let's get into the quick comparison. Popping under the hoods, or rather the trunks of both of them, we have the naturally aspirated 4.6 liter V8 here on the Ferrari paired to a 7-speed dual clutch automatic transmission. Power outputs are 570 horsepower and then 398 pound-feet of torque. Popping over to the NSX, we have a twin-turbo 3.5 liter V6 that's paired to a 9-speed dual-clutch automatic transmission and a hybrid system. Total system output is 573 horsepower and then 476 pound-feet of torque. So this one's not going to sound as good, but it's going to get better fuel economy, and you're going to get way more torque off the line. And then also it's all-wheel drive, whereas this is rear-wheel drive. Sounds a whole lot better. You're not going to get as good traction, and then it's not going to be nearly as torquey. Now, like I said, this is going to be a quick overview on both of the cars. So starting over here with the NSX, you can see that you've got that cool kind of futuristic look on the front end, especially with the LEDs there, and then you've got all of the venting and everything, and then all the venting there on the hood as well. It just has this cool futuristic sharp look. Whereas going over to the Ferrari, it kind of has this more beautiful, elegant look. Everything from the headlights to the body lines they do on the hood, everything just kind of like flows together. And then yes, you've got the blacked out Ferrari horse there at the bottom, which looks pretty neat. But you've got beauty, and then you've got kind of like, again, the spaceship kind of futuristic look right there. And then coming over to the wheel design here, kind of a similar thing. Like this looks like a really nice kind of watch, and yeah, they actually do make watches with the Ferrari brake caliper. But that's kind of what that reminds me of, is just like a really nice, elegant watch. Whereas this, again, kind of has more of that modern, futuristic look to it from a design perspective. And then you've got the venting here, which definitely looks really cool. Almost looks like a buttress, but obviously it's not actually a buttress like what you get in the Ford GT. Whereas here, notice they just kind of cleaned everything up, so there's no venting or anything on the side, but then you do get the venting there in the rear. And then this one is a spider, so you get like the rear window that'll pop down, so you can hear tons of stuff from the engine. And then coming to the back of the 458, again, just notice how they have all the body lines just like flow together. It's really smooth, and again, kind of has more of an elegant look. Whereas with the NSX, everything's sharper, and again, it has more of that modern aesthetic to it from the outside perspective. Just two completely different cars, but like, I mean, they're both supercars. They just kind of come to the same thing in different ways. Now let's quickly go over the cockpit here of the Ferrari. So just notice with the door panel here, just leather everywhere. And you notice that's the theme of this car. Everything is pretty much covered in leather. You've got the full leather seats, and then with the steering wheel, you've got the leather with the carbon fiber, all that. And then you have the signature Ferrari gauge cluster there, which just looks really cool. They've got the tachometer front and center. But yeah, again, they kind of go for that more like elegant look with the interior, and kind of more of an old school aesthetic overall with the interior of the Ferrari. Now, popping over to the NSX, notice that you've got all of the Alcantara, so it's not just leather like in the Ferrari. And then you obviously do have the contrast between the black and with the red as well. But again, they've kind of gone for more of a futuristic look with the Acura. Everything from the sport seats that it has to the steering wheel, and then you've got the digital gauge cluster as well with the NSX. And by the way, we'll pop it on. Obviously, the Ferrari, everything's pretty much analog, whereas with this, it's digital. So you've got kind of like that digital look with the center, and then you got the center infotainment system, again, just more modern kind of look with all of this. And that's kind of like the difference, right? You've got the beautiful analog looking car, and then here you've got the beautiful but then kind of more modern looking vehicle. talk about visibility here with the Ferrari. So like you have a really large windscreen, easy to see out of, and then with both the mirrors, it's okay. It's not as good as the NSX, but it's pretty good. And then throughout the rear, again, not as good as the NSX, but visibility is pretty good. Like both of these for supercars, visibility is solid. And well, let's set off. So we're first starting off here in the 458, and I can tell you it is significantly louder in the cabin of this car, and this car just feels like it just wants to get up and move, whereas the NSX just kind of is like, it's okay with going slow. And it's almost like comparing a Prius to a like high performance car. Like that's the difference in driving when you're just kind of driving slow. The NSX is really good at driving slow. The Ferrari, on the other hand, it's not, because this is all about exciting driving, exhilarating driving basically with the Ferrari. And the thing I'm noticing with this car is you actually do feel quite a bit more weight in the back end of the Ferrari. The NSX kind of has it more evenly distributed, and you can feel it with the driving. With this, the back end, you just kind of feel the weight coming around. Whereas with the NSX, it feels kind of more evenly planted all around. And yeah, it's just a different driving experience with both of them. Of course, we've got to get acceleration. Now it is colder outside, so we're not going to go crazy with it. Definitely sounds, I mean, listen to the downshifts. So I was short shifting there a little bit, just trying to get it to fully warm up, make sure it's all the way warmed up. I know some Ferrari fanatics out there are probably going to be really angry at me. Don't worry, we've been driving it around for a minute. But the sound that you get with the 458 is unlike any other sound you get compared to any other car. And compared to the NSX, this thing just, I mean, there's no comparison. Like this sounds like a race car, whereas the NSX kind of sounds like your house vacuum cleaner almost in a way. But I mean, it's definitely a huge difference. And we'll get one more acceleration, then we'll kind of cap things off with the Ferrari before we go over and drive the NSX. Those shifts are so violent. This really is just like a driver's car. It's a visceral car. This is the type of car that I would not want to drive on a regular basis. I would only want to drive this like on the weekends if I really want to drive this car. But other than that, like it's just not as daily drivable. And so it's just two completely different cars. But obviously at this point, they're relatively similar prices. Now the Ferrari has held its value better than the NSX, so they are a little bit more money, but they're still relatively the same price at this point. And so it really just depends. If you want a really visceral car that's just a driver's car that is gonna be exciting and get your heart pounding every single time you get into it, the Ferrari. But if you want something that's a little bit more daily drivable, it's still fast, then the NSX. It really just depends on what you're looking for. Well, let's talk about visibility before we set off here in the NSX. And first off, visibility out the front is absolutely fantastic. Like the windshield's really big and the front end's not long because again, it's a mid-engine car. And so it's just really easy to see things out of the front. And then these mirrors, not only are they beautiful, they're really practical. The visibility out of them is actually really good. And then for being a mid-engine car through the back, visibility is great. And I love how you can like see into the engine bay through this back window. It just looks so cool. But let's get to the part that I have been waiting a long time for, and let's set off. Well, now we are setting off here in the NSX, and you guys are probably wondering about the dash. This car has an aftermarket exhaust, and the aftermarket exhaust triggered one of the sensors, and so that's why there's lights on the dash. Don't worry, the car's all good. We are fine. But anyways, with the NSX, you instantly notice a huge difference. So first off, with the transmissions, with the Ferrari, that 7-speed dual clutch is really quick to shift, but it's kind of lurchy at low speeds, and you definitely feel a torque gap between shifts. Whereas with the NSX, there is like no gap whatsoever between the shifts. It's just super smooth. There's like no power loss whatsoever when you go from gear to gear. And then the other thing I noticed with the NSX is it definitely feels a little bit more planted compared to the Ferrari. The back end of the Ferrari obviously is going to go all over the place because you've got 570 horsepower rear-wheel drive. But with the NSX, other than the all-wheel drive, it feels like the weight, like I said with the Ferrari, compared to the Ferrari, it just feels like the weight's more evenly distributed with this car. And so you kind of get this more planted feel, and you kind of get this more balanced feel with the car overall. There definitely is more weight in the back end, but it still feels really balanced. Definitely not as much noise as the Ferrari. It's definitely quiet on the cabin. Feels more like a luxury car. The Ferrari feels like this like visceral race car, whereas the NSX kind of feels like this luxury car in a way, which, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. That means this one's way more daily drivable. And you guys are probably getting upset because that Toyota is driving a lot faster than us, but we're just kind of cruising along here. Of course, we got to get an acceleration. Crazy. So here's what I have to say about the acceleration. The acceleration with the 458 definitely feels crazier and more visceral than the acceleration here with the NSX. That bird, thank goodness that was a bird. If that was not a bird, my whole career would have just been ended right there. But this doesn't have that same visceral feeling as the 458 with the acceleration, but it feels faster. It feels like quite a bit faster compared to the 458. And again, I think that's due to the fact that you've got the electric motors to fill the torque gaps between gear shifts. And then also this is turbocharged. We're at higher elevation, so you also do get some power loss with the naturally aspirated engine. This also has a little bit more horsepower, but I believe this weighs more than the 458. But yeah, definitely like it feels like it just punches harder than the Ferrari does. Like there's just a significant difference with the acceleration. The downshifts aren't nearly as violent, like it's just smooth. And same thing with the upshifts, like it's just smooth. The Ferrari, like when you downshift, it shakes the whole car, and it's like this, again, this crazy visceral feeling. Whereas with the NSX, it's buttery smooth. And so it just lends to a different driving experience. With the Ferrari, I almost feel like I want to hold back a little bit because the car scares me because of how fast it is and because of how violent it is with the gear shifts. Whereas with the NSX here, I just want to drive it faster and faster and see how much faster I can go around a corner, see how much faster I can accelerate. It just gives you so much more confidence. And so it just depends on what you're looking for from a driving perspective. Do you want this crazy visceral driving experience that every single time you get in the car is going to be really exciting? Ferrari. Do you want something that you could daily drive that's crazy fast, crazy capable, that kind of is like a multi-purpose vehicle in a sense? Then I would go with the NSX. So really, it just depends on what you're looking for. It's gonna sum things up for a quick comparison between the Acura NSX and the Ferrari 458. And again, a huge shout out and thank you to Chandler. And obviously he's got his massive collection here. Linked in the description below to his channel. And then thanks to Jaden for having his cool cars kind of in the background of today's video. Again, linked in the description to his channel as well. But as always, I'll see all of you in the next video.